Well, after months of waiting and drama, we finally made it to the release of Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. When the game was announced, I was cautiously optimistic. The original Dead Rising was an excellent but niche game. Despite somewhat janky controls, notoriously awful survivor AI, and the infamous timer, Dead Rising proved to be a rewarding game if you could get past those flaws in game mechanics. It would be incredibly important for a remake to balance difficulty changes without trivializing the elements that made the original game rewarding. Despite my fears, the first deep look into the game back in July made me feel better, as the developer said that they would be keeping the game as true to the original as possible while adding some quality of life improvements to appease newcomers. While that was good to hear, the reveal of various elements from the original game being censored led me to worry about the game. As previously stated, the months leading up to this game were chock full of controversy. Despite some reservations, I decided to keep my pre-order and see what this game has in store before making any more videos on the game. Now that I've played the game, I've come to give the official Come Dungeon Gaming opinion on the Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. Let's just hop into the review. I know there's going to be a bunch of schizos that are going to flip a tit over what I'm going to say regarding censorship and the franchise's future, and I need to make some popcorn before untreated mental illness begins to flood our comments section. First things first, I have to admit that I'm an absolute layman when it comes to graphical fidelity and whatnot. I've been a console friend for years, so as long as the frame rate isn't noticeably low and the game doesn't look like it was made in an Eastern European internet cafe in between shifts at the coal mine, it doesn't bother me. Since one of the game's big selling points being the change to the RE engine with its higher fidelity graphics, I may as well talk briefly about it. To the eyes of someone who has been using his newfound life in the PC master race to play lightly modded New Vegas, the game looks alright. I've noticed textures from the OG have been reused and upscaled, which is nice, even though it might have been done with AI. The mall's areas have been updated, with some having absolutely new designs, while others have had some minor changes that still look pretty damn good. The vending machines, benches, and plants are a nice touch. Makes the mall feel more lived in. The RE engine does have issues with colors looking washed out, but changing this setting will make colors look a little bit more vibrant. The last comment I'll make regarding the technical side of things regards an issue that I encountered with stuttering after I leave a loading screen. I am running this on relatively older hardware, so that could be an issue on my end. Just let me know in the comments if you've also encountered this problem. With the change in the engine, we got a new look for each survivor in Psycho. Going through each one would be pedantic, so I'll leave it at this. Some character redesigns are even better than what they originally looked like, some look exactly the same, and some have had some baffling changes to their looks. I don't know why they made Brad look like a pissed off Steve Harvey, but they really shouldn't have. Frank's redesign, while closer to how he looked in the beta, still looks off. I'll never understand the choice of aging him 10 years, giving him a goblin nose, and Vegeta's hairline. While we're talking about the changes made to characters, I should mention the new voice performances. So far, I don't have a problem with most of the main cast. As I'm sure you all know by now, Frank is no longer voiced by his original voice actor, TJ Rotolo. The new voice of Frank, Jas Patrick, does a serviceable job. I was originally put off by him, but he slowly grew on me throughout the game. He might not be the voice we all know and love, but I can live with it, whatever. Everyone does a decent job, but I've gotta say that Brad's new voice actor just doesn't work that well. His line delivery falls flat in many scenes, and he lacks the authoritative energy Brad's original voice actor gave to the role. Everyone else in the cast, though, mostly an inoffensive job, comparable to the original performances. One thing I have to mention is the survivor voice lines. Survivors in the first game had their dialogue given solely through speech boxes. Now these lines are completely voiced. I'm gonna be frank, there. They all sound like English anime dub voice actors.
There's something cool over here, Frank. Why don't you take a quick snapshot?
Alright, let's take the town red.
I bet even that machete guy was just a nice old man before all this happened.
Not Otis, though. He does a damn good impression of Lee from The Walking Dead.
You ain't planning on going back down into the mall, are you? I wouldn't do that if I were you. But you young folks never listen to me. Well, if you're gonna go, at least take this transceiver with you. You better take this map too.
I honestly thought that Otis was voiced by Dave Fennoy before finishing the game and seeing that he was voiced by someone named Alvin Che, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Otis sounds almost exactly like the voice I had for him in my head for the last 18 years. Now onto gameplay. One thing that I was trying to be conscious of during my playthrough was a bias that I held in favor of the original game. I've been playing Dead Rising for almost 20 years at this point. Changing something in a beloved game that I've been playing for most of my life is going to feel incredibly weird. Originally, I scoffed at things like the time skip, autosave, and changes to the way you control Frank. Honestly, after giving the remaster a playthrough and killing a lot of time in infinite mode, I have to say that these changes feel good without casualizing the experience too much. Skipping time between periods with no activity like the early morning of day 2 or waiting for the chopper at the end of 72-hour mode saves time and makes the game flow far more smoothly. The autosave admittedly does take away quite a lot of challenge for new players. For longtime veterans, the autosave is a minor help when you know how to navigate them all while taking little to no damage. However, for the new player, this might take away a bit from the experience. The autosave removes the thrill of trying to make it to the next scoop with barely enough time, risking a game over and getting sent back to an earlier save. To each their own, I guess. It's not that big of a deal, to be frank. Speaking of Frank, he now controls much better. Controls feel more responsive, and it's far more easy to use the dodge roll as it's now bound to a button rather than tapping the stick forward twice. Another good thing is that Frank definitely feels less sluggish at early levels. The only issue I have with how Frank moves now is that you are no longer able to do the iconic Frank West spin. Erotica gone, lines changed for stupid reasons, none compared to the loss of the Frank West spin. We'll get to my thoughts on the censorship soon, I promise. One quick aside that I'd like to mention is that during the pre-release, people noticed that you earn PP far faster than you did in the original. Killing 50 zombies nets you 3 times the PP you'd get before, and photos feel like they give far more PP than they used to. I don't really like this as I feel it disincentivizes you from finding survivors or adventuring through the mall to find interactable items or PP stickers. It's a minor gripe, but I feel it should be mentioned. Survivors are back and are slightly less stupid. They won't get caught up in crowds as much as they used to, and their pathing seems to be a lot better now. I will say though, they still have their moments of stupidity. The pipes in Willamette definitely still have lead in them, just a bit less though. Survivors can now give Frank hints and tips about various things around the mall. Some will point out hidden items, while others will reveal PP stickers that will go totally viral on social media. I didn't find much use for it considering I have this game autistically memorized, but I think it'll be helpful to new survivors. One other thing to mention regarding survivors is the new affinity system. Survivors will now have food and weapons that they like. Giving a survivor one of their preferred items gives them a higher affinity with you, allowing them to fight more effectively and help Frank out of grapples. I personally didn't get much use out of it as I found it easier to just herd them through the mall as fast as possible without going out of my way to find things like a Japanese radish or a giant perfume bottle. One improvement that I would suggest for this system is to give players unique rewards for getting certain survivors to max affinity. For example, imagine a survivor likes an item that is only found in one area of the mall and you go out of your way to find it. A good reward for using up your limited amount of time would be a tip from the survivor about something in the mall that only they know about. Hey, thanks for giving me the specific bottle of wine that only spawns in the supermarket. I hid an assault rifle in the back of the store I worked in here. The Stacys that shunned my tender young heart have been zombified, so I don't have a use for it anymore. Rewards could vary from hidden food stashes to books that the survivors have on them that they now feel inclined to give to you. It would encourage players to interact with the survivors for more than just PP game. Wrapping up my section on gameplay, I have to mention that the new content they added was really damn cool. The new books and the out-of-the-way locations are a nice surprise, and the new camera upgrades add interesting new ways to take cool photos that are sure to go viral on social media. Giving the player the option to spare the reluctant Sniper Thomas and the Hall family psycho fight was a great touch. While most people are disappointed that you can't recruit him as a survivor, I think it makes more sense considering you just killed his dad and brother. The only problem is that there aren't a lot of changes like this, and it makes me want more. One idea that I was hoping for during the game's development was a sort of remix mode. Changing the spawn time and locations for various scoops would be one hell of a way to change up the game. Hell, maybe they could have even changed the mall's layout. Imagine the warehouse leads you into Alfresca Plaza now instead of Paradise Plaza, and you've got the North Plaza and Wonderland Plaza to the sides of you. The idea might be a little out of reach for the B team that worked on this, but again, it's just a fun idea. Now on to the biggest controversies regarding this game, the censorship. Originally, I didn't want to talk about wokeness in this review because I'd rather use this channel to make funny poop and sex jokes rather than get involved with anything political. While I agree with like 99% of what anti-woke YouTubers say, there's something in my gut for a lot of these channels that just says to me, yeah, these niggas gay. Anyways, after giving it some thought, I decided that the censorship is just too important to ignore. Anyways, I digress. We all know the big changes. The erotica genre of photography was removed, Larry the Butcher was changed to be less stereotypically Chinese, and Cliff's lines were changed to remove any reference to Vietnam or communism. Cliff not calling Frank Viet Cong anymore and removing his line about communism makes no sense. Who the hell are they trying to avoid offending? Communists? The Chinese market somehow? It's just asinine. I originally thought that the actual developers of this game, Neobards, were a Chinese company and they were avoiding slandering communism in order to prevent themselves from pissing off the Chinese government. When I went to look them up though, I realized that they were actually a Taiwanese company, so they're not under Chinese rule. I guess that they didn't want a bunch of screaming rice cells and tankies at their doors for slandering the hammer and sickle of hunger. Speaking of moronic changes, erotica's removal seems to be a last-minute thing. Dead Rising has always had this strange sexual undertone even without erotica. Zombie women biting Frank's dick, Frank doing a sexy dance when changing into women's clothes, Cheryl's photo shoot, and let's not forget Joe filling up a woman with her nightstick. All of these quirky parts of the game have been brought into the remake. Hell, I was genuinely surprised to see Cheryl do the photo shoot with no changes whatsoever. The only big changes are the removal of the erotica genre, the zombies that spawn in fishnets and panties, and Kent now asks you for an outtake photo instead of an erotica photo. It feels as if this was a last-minute change brought on by some obese black woman from Sweet Baby coming into the office and seeing somebody get points for taking pictures of Jesse's rack. I'm not upset about removing PP for taking photos of undead boobs. If you look in my camera roll, you see that I do it for the love of the game. One point that people missing parts of their brain and Capcom shills keep bringing up is that, oh, it's just a pink circle. Why are you crying, Chud? It doesn't change the gameplay. If its removal wasn't such a big deal, why would keeping it be an issue? You still get points for taking a photo of a man blowing his brains out, or taking a photo of zombies eating somebody. If taking a photo of a woman's chest is problematic, shouldn't it be more problematic to take photos of people killing themselves and dying horribly? One funny thing that this removal led to is Kent's photo challenge. So now, Kent's challenge requires you to get an outtake photo instead of an erotica photo. I completed his challenge by taking a photo of the Japanese tourist bowing at me. Now, why would he find Japanese people bowing so funny? Seeing foreigners bow to a white person really makes Kent laugh, huh? Geez, really makes you think. I think part of what made Dead Rising so unique was that it touched on themes like the destructive nature of American consumerism, the exploitative nature of sensationalist media, and our government's refusal to acknowledge its crimes. We lose parts of this when we remove things like Kent's erotica challenge or Cliff's trauma from the Vietnam War. Cliff loses some of the punch that comes with his situation when you remove that historical context. Think about it, he's obviously going through an episode when you encounter him. The fact that he's calling Frank a Viet Cong and a communist shows that his mind is back in the jungle. Cliff was likely forced into the war through the draft. His proficiency in killing shows that he did some heavy stuff during his time in Vietnam. He made it back physically intact, but he was obviously traumatized by the absolutely fucked up shit he saw out there. Hell, he probably got harassed by civilians when he got home, being called a baby killer and a murderer. After all that, he presumably adjusts to civilian life and begins a family, only for all those years of healing to come crashing down when his granddaughter is eaten alive by zombies right in front of him. The tragedy of this character is watered down when you remove his historical context. Kent goes from a personification of the media cycle's need for more tragedy, shocking imagery, and scandalous material, to a social media influencer wanting, something totally funny for TikTok, dude. While Larry's change is somewhat understandable when you take a look at the credits of the game and see the crazy amounts of Chinese names that worked on it, changing his look changes his impact on the story. I should mention, when I say understandable, I don't mean that they should have done it. I'm just saying that, look, I don't think the Chinese people that worked on this game are going to make a guy who looks like that. Still, I think they should have done the Yakuza 0 route, where they gave the international audience the original design, and they should have given the redesign to the crybaby Chinese audience. Anyways, I'm getting off topic here. Now, admittedly, I did somewhat unintentionally cover for Capcom when I gave my first impression of his design. I made the point that there was a sense of dramatic irony that Carlito was finished off by a butcher that looks like any butcher you'd see at your local supermarket rather than a foreigner. Carlito being finished off by a butcher that you can find at any supermarket in America added a very ironic twist to his death. While I still think the redesign is interesting, this commenter on my second Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster video had this to say regarding the design. He's an immigrant who adopted the American way of life and serves its people with obsession. In Carlito's eyes, he's a traitor and a sellout who should be on his side, considering the US could have conducted their experiments anywhere, including Larry's original home, and America has corrupted him to the point he represents everything Carlito hates about America, but in the body of a foreigner, which could arguably be even worse in his eyes, as America's ideals are polluting people that aren't even originally from there. I gotta say, this is definitely the better point here. Carlito being killed by an immigrant that has become the epitome of everything he hates fits perfectly with the game's themes. I don't understand why developers don't want games to have an edge that could offend people these days. The censorship of these parts of the game show a lack of artistic integrity. I fear that future Dead Rising games and remakes could lose any sort of bite or edge to try to appeal to the spiritually molested losers who see video games as a vehicle for propaganda or social engineering. The fact of the matter is, I can't fully endorse this game if this is the direction Capcom is going to take the franchise. What's the point of bringing back the series if something we enjoyed in the original games is deemed problematic and removed for the sake of the ever-elusive modern audiences? Despite the game being pretty good, I can't recommend buying it because of the direction Capcom is looking to take the series. The best way to experience Dead Rising would be to simply play the original. I think it's like $10 on Steam right now. Even though on a gameplay and graphical level, this game is great, the censorship and the fact that DEI and leftist sensibilities will now be taken into account when making the future games bodes poorly for the franchise. My recommendation would be to just play the original and pirate the remake if you really want to play it. Okay, that's my yearly woke rant over. I'm gonna do a video about Fear and Hunger for October, so let me know in the comments below if you're looking forward to it. Anyways, Jesse ain't getting any warmer. Leave my safe room now!